Welcome to OCden Risk Management Platform. In this video, we'll walk you through the lifecycle of a single risk. So, this is the OCden app. And in the main menu bar, we have this section called Risks. Clicking on it brings us to the Risks page, where we record and track all identified risks. Right now, the page is empty because we are starting from scratch. Let's create our very first risk. Here, only name and description are enough to get started quickly. Let's enter the name. Next is description. Let's add something that conveys the business impact. Enough details for now. Let's click on Submit, and our newly created risk shows up here. Once a risk is created, it remains in draft status. From there, someone, usually from the cybersecurity team, steps in periodically, say every few days, to review all new risks. They check if the risk looks valid, and then reassign it to the right owner to take it forward for assessment. Here it's a ransomware risk, so let's assign it to someone from IT team. And let us assign the ownership to Jason and move the risk into the next state. Our risk is now waiting for assessment, and the assigned owner will now figure out how serious the risk is. That is the likelihood and impact scores, which are right now undefined, as we have not filled them yet. Let's enter the scores now by clicking on the Edit button. We click on Risk Scores section, and then, we edit the scores here. If the assessor knows the domain well, they can arrive on a score by themselves. If not, they'll need to work with others, across the company, to decide on the right score. Once the scores are entered, we click Submit. The newly updated scores are visible here in the risk details. Having done this, we can mark the assessment as done. At this stage, risk assessment is complete, and we now need to decide how to treat the risk. Whether to mitigate it, or accept, or transfer. Let us say we want to mitigate it. At this stage, when the risk is waiting for mitigation, you might want to change the owner to someone who can figure out the mitigation strategy. Here we are assigning it to Grace. She finds out that the reason why the impact is very high is because there's no backup strategy in place yet. She then identifies two important sources of critical data and decides to put in place some measures. She creates a control here. This is the Add Control page where she fills in the control name, and then proceeds to fill in the statement, which is a high-level description of what needs to be done to mitigate the risk. She clicks Submit, and the newly created control is now linked to the risk. Then she creates a second control for critical data stored on central servers. She gives a high-level description of what needs to be done to back up this critical data. Submit, and both the controls are now linked to the risk. We now go back to the risk, and we can now move it to mitigation in progress. This state reflects that work has started on control. Now it may take a few days, or a few months for the control to get fully functional. Till then, the risk will remain in this same state, and once the controls are implemented, we move it to mitigated. But before that, we need to set the residual risk scores. If we don't, we will get this error. So let's get back, and click the Edit button. Here is the residual risk section. We click on it to edit the scores. The likelihood of getting a ransomware attack after we have implemented the backup strategy remains unchanged, so score will stay at 3. However, the impact will reduce significantly as we can now quickly restore systems. So let's change the score to 2. Click Submit. Residual scores are updated and visible here. So now, we can move the risk to mitigated. This completes a full life cycle of our risk. This was just one example that shows mitigate scenario. We will talk about other ways of treating risks like accept, transfer, etc. in a separate video. So, that brings us to the end of the video. As you saw, it is quite easy to manage cybersecurity risks with OCden structured workflows. If you are interested, you can contact us for your free trial now.